Yo, what's up, folks? Nigerian Terrell, we're back here today for another special review. Let me kind of break this all down for you. Today, we're going to be reviewing the new mini series that's coming to FX under the banner of Heaven. It is a limited series. There's only about 7 episodes. We're going to quickly give like a review, non-spoiler. Then we're going to deep dive into the first 2 episodes, which you can check out starting April 28th, and then additional episodes weekly. So review, sort of recap kind of thing going on here for the first 2 episodes. But let's get into it very easy here. Before we actually talk about what the series is, I just want to know your instant reaction. We saw the first 2. So what's just your thoughts about the series and your interest in the series, shall I say?
Well, let's just say the trailer had my curiosity, but the 2 episodes definitely caught my interest and how they did this. And this is it's a real slow building whodunit. You know what I mean? Like, so it's definitely and then this particular show uses religion as the kind of the background of the reason why in this show. So what I want to say too much like early, but I'll give it anything. We don't know anything yet, so I'm not giving anything away, but it's definitely caught my interest.
I mean, number one, it's Andrew Garfield on television, so let's see what he can do long-term storytelling. I think he's a phenomenal actor. He's been blazing hot within the last 2 years and beyond, to be honest. But with that, and then you start looking at the rest of the cast, Sam Worthington, Daisy Edgar-Jones, what's his name? Because it always slips out of my head. By the way, Sam Worthington from Avatar, I feel like I haven't seen him in anything that was worth talking about.
Terminator?
In a while.
Terminator?
In a while. Which Terminator?
Rise of the Machine? No. The one with
Batman. Right. Okay, but I mean, Avatar's still like his mecca, and plus there's like a billion more Avatars coming, so there's that. And who else we got in it too? Oh, and then Wyatt Russell, obviously from Winter Soldier, Falcon Winter Soldier, and
one of the Falcon brothers.
Yeah. So just to be honest, like just a very good cast of notable names, top tier names at that. Andrew's top tier, Daisy I feel is top tier. So cast, and I'm always intrigued of folks you see mainly on television, mainly in movies, stepping into a television role, and then just the murder mystery aspect of it. I'm a huge murder mystery fan, and this conflict between this apparent murder, not only of an adult woman, but a child, but the battle between religion and the law of man. I think this series really caught my eye on paper by its cast. Then the trailer was phenomenal, and then going into the first 2 episodes, I was like, "Oh, this is going to be one folks are going to be talking about. Like, this is good storytelling. Like the script is good, the plot is good. The score is so fantastic in this, because in these moments of being uncomfortable, and I think there's a lot of reasons to be uncomfortable. I think one, when anybody starts talking about religion, that makes people uncomfortable. I think the nature of the investigation is uncomfortable. And I also think because you start to become suspicious of so many different folks, that it leads you to be a little bit uncomfortable in terms of where you may personally feel about certain people. And then the score comes in, heightens it all up, kind of makes it a little cinematic at times. I mean, the score that kind of ends going into the end of episode 2 was so upbeat, like you're just expecting something crazy to kind of happen, and like folks' performances really was like I said, elevated and complimented with that. So like production wise, this is really, really good. I can't wait to really get into it, but I wanted to quickly just give a quick like non-spoiler, like totally check this out. It is a mini series, so you're not going to be getting season 2 and 3 and beyond. one season, 7 episodes. It's on FX. Then the following day you can find it on Hulu. So you got ways of checking it out, and I think that it's going to add commentary, and I think not so much commentary in terms of law versus religion, but more or less folks' suspicion about certain characters, and I think that's going to be fun. I always like when everybody get involved and whatnot. So I'm here to co-sign and say that this is a series you want to check out. You want to go out the way to check this one out. Andrew Garfield alone name should automatically be an eye opener for you, but I'm telling you, he's surrounded by other talented folks that absolutely should be respected. Like I said, Sam, Daisy, and even Wyatt, just to name a few at that, are all really bringing together and meshing well. And that's another thing that some people can tend to forget as well too, is that like you can have like a huge star presence on the show, and then they just completely be the center of the show. And why it is focused around Andrew's character, because he's the lead detective, everybody, I feel, even in small moments, really make like the best of it and of interest of their characters. I don't think there's a character yet that I'm kind of like, wow, they here. Like, and even how this show is built, where like women are considered inferior, even the women, you're kind of just like, I don't know, man. This is a little, because we got things to talk about. Because I'm sure I'm thinking some things that you're not thinking, but we're going to get into it. So anyway, folks, again, that is just our quick. You got anything else you want to add on the non-spoiler side of this? Because I know you're itching to dive into it.
No, like you said, it's a really great ensemble cast. Andrew being the lead, man, like you said, he's been really good come up these last 2 years for him. But like you said, I mean, like everybody's got a big question mark on their head when you watch the show, and everybody brings their A game in terms of performance here. You know, not method, required. So, but no, that was it on non-spoiler.
Yeah. I also should add, because I feel like when mentioning religion, folks can be deterrent by that. While there is a religious backdrop, I still think the prime catalyst to this is the murder mystery aspect. I feel like that's the driving factor, because one may see religion as a way of life. You also kind of see that kind of challenge in terms of, or is it just some type of, I don't know, what's a very polite way I can say this? Of some type of like excuse to go about things the way you want to. Right. And then to come back and say, oh, religion made me do it. So like, it's all these different types of things happening. There's a ton of characters in this. So, bear with us. So we make sure we are addressing the right characters correctly. But even with that being said, the show does get gritty at times. There was a couple of scenes that I was definitely cringed up because of some of the actions that was happening. But overall, it's still good.
You was feeling tense. The music had you.
Listen, I'm not a big fan of dogs or animal brutality.
Nah, man, that's not cool.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of it. So anyway, getting into it. This is Under the Banner of Heaven. Here we are going to review full spoiler recaps here of episode 1 and 2. The reason why we're doing 1 and 2 is because 1 and 2 are dropping the same night. So you're good to go. 2 hours of show to watch. You got about an hour or less with us here. So this show is about Detective Jeb Pyre, who's played by Andrew Garfield, who's investigating the murder of Brenda Wright Lafferty and her baby daughter in Salt Lake Valley, Utah. And in all of this, he's uncovering buried truths about the origins of the Latter-day Saints church religion,
LSD.
And the violent LSD and the violent consequences of the unyielding faith. So let's get into it. Let's talk about Andrew's character.
Okay.
And I'll toss it to you. Andrew's character, Jeb, he's a family man. He seems to be strong in his faith, but there is a sense of responsibility not only to his family, but to his community in being a detective. And sometimes I think the biggest thing with this character is that we see that completely challenged. The way how they shoot his character's conflict is so fantastic, because early we see him to be a very prideful man. His wife, he makes sure that his mother, who's dealing with some type of memory loss, I think, was it ever addressed to be dementia?
Yeah, like I mean, she's definitely dealing with it, and like I said, waking up in the middle of the night, the screaming and stuff like that. Yeah, like
Yeah. So and
not,
and and, and still thinking her
her
husband,
husband's
his
still alive.
father is alive.
Yeah,
Right. So so she's living in the house with them. He's making sure that mom is good. He's taking care of his wife. He has 2 baby girls, and they pray together as a family. Um, I don't think there's any discrepancy into who he is as a person. I think they established that he is a solid person. But the moment he takes a step outside the house, I don't think he lose that integrity, but he just realized how dark the world could be. And upon him arriving into the murder scene, we see him sort of go into trance. And you start to see the conflict. I'll give it to you. What do you think was kind of happening here? What do you think was metabolizing as he stepped on the scene here?
well, you definitely seeing him kind of like shed that skin between a brother of the faith and a detective. Like you gotta separate those two to an extent. And they explained that majority of this town is LSD. You know what I mean? Like you ain't gonna be able to walk nowhere without finding somebody of the faith. So just the way he goes about things, and how he talks to Taba, and just kind of having him as kind of the differential between like somebody that works there that is LSD and somebody that's not, and how he says like we handle things down here differently. We because the Laffertys are like the Jacks of this town, right? You know what I mean? Like the celebrities of this town. The way he handles things, but as you see him walk into that house, you see him like process the potentially what could have happened, and you see him thinking about his kids and his wife, and like, man, who could have did this, you know what I mean? Like, so definitely kind of torn between, like I said, shedding that his religious side and then going into his detective mode in that particular scene.
Yeah, I think it's very important to understand that the moment that anything is outside of the faith is considered bad. The conflict between how far you would go to solve this case and whatever that means that's not written in the word is problematic. And I think this character has that conflict. I mean, he comes into a house and sees the 24-year-old murdered and a 15-month girl murdered. And again, yeah, you're right. He looks and thinks about his daughters. Who wouldn't? I mean, the viewers, I think you automatically think like he's going to lose it. He just saw his 2 daughters go to bed.
You know what? When I first saw that scene, I was like, okay, is he coming back home and seeing this to his own house? Or I was kind of confused, and it was like, no, okay, this is Brenda. Once they explain later on, but kind of got me for a second, like, and that's it.
So, right, and so with LSD and the way of the Book of Mormon, it starts to it is the way of, and this is like a very I forget the word for it. It's not a double entendre. What's the word? I don't know, but it's a word like it's the way of the land, but it's actually not the way of the land because there's still the law of the land. But in here, this is the majority of it. And what's important to reference that is because there is this religious backdrop of history that's painted throughout the entire series thus far. We're like, even though we're trying to understand what's happening current day, you see why things are why they are right now with this land.
Right.
It's very understood that a lot of battle, a lot of holy religious war was fought on this land. And so while the Laffertys are celebrity and while they are, strong within the faith, presumably, it's still understood that like when folks were not, these things happen. And when folks were, these things happen. So like to always have that mindset of understanding that like religion versus law, man law, is always the backdrop of every single thing. And to deviate from one to the other is problematic. Yeah, and that's why like Andrew's characters become so much more interesting.
it's going to be a lot of like church versus state in this. You know what I mean? Kind of like separating the two. Like, you know what I mean? Like, do you bring your religion into work, into an investigation? You know, that's what a lot of what we see with Detective Pyre. Like, you know, is he some of his methods? You know, still trying to be a brother of the faith and a detective at the same time is not working. You know what I mean? Like, in certain things, certain ways you got to do it. But I guess, you know, the way he's been doing it in this particular town. So it's definitely weird.
Yeah, and you know, he's and at this point he becomes overly motivated to get to this. It broke him.
He's on a time limit.
Yeah, that for sure. Always, especially whenever it's a murder and you're the lead detective, you're always on time limit. His partner Bill is from Nevada, so he becomes like the lens for the viewers because he has a certain understanding and degree of investigating and the law, and everything's challenged by his skin color, by his profession. He comes in and he becomes that very unbiased party on the land who's alongside of him in the ride. We don't get too much of him in this first episode in terms of his impact, but it's asserted where things could potentially go with him. He's not religious. He curses, which is like, oh God. And like, you know, and he always says there's a prejudice. I see how people look at me. And then him and Andrew even have it at times where he's just like, we need to do it this way. This is how we do it this way. We need to pull these people in. That's probably not the right way. Folks are going to not like that. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where that asserts there. At this point now, we get some backstory to Brenda. Brenda is talented. She's what?
No, you said she's what?
She's talented.
Oh, yeah. Opinionated.
Yeah. Destined. She wants to go to Utah because she wants to go to BYU to help Zion. And that is what sounds like a very standard request. Like, okay, cool.
Right.
Except she's a woman. I don't know if we should talk about it right now. Maybe we'll save it for when we get into episode 2.
Okay.
But she wants to make change. And that seems it's a positive thing. So like they start to establish Brenda as being just a woman who is she's better trying to better her life.
Right.
She gets away from her family. Her dad is I'm not gonna say he's not against her.
No, you definitely see him making the push for her to want to be better and not be, you know, let a man lead her life. You know what I mean? Like, you know, whereas though like the whole thing with college and everything else like that, the whole conversation in the car is you hear him, you know, kind of make the push for Brenda and being a stronger woman. You know what I mean? So that definitely sets up her character. Like, who's she's supposed to be going forward in the next couple episodes.
Yeah. I won't go as far as saying he's a feminist, but he's definitely pro-women. He's definitely like, listen, you can do these things. And it's great. It's all this is normal. You know what I mean? Except it's not for where she's going. And he's aware of these things.
Right.
But as Andrew, I want to stop calling him Andrew, as Jeb leaves out of Detective Pyre, comes out of the house, they then see and meet Alan. Alan is bloodied, covered in blood everywhere. Alan Lafferty. Alan is the husband of Brenda. Folks, we know how this goes. The husband, in blood, of course, is always the prime suspect. So he's immediately brought in. He is startled. He is shaken. But at this point now, presumably that he's involved in this, and it's not really helping that he's in blood. What you thought about his introduction?
Man, I'm like, oh, they got him already. You know, he's clearly his whole setup was to throw the audience off, right? Like to throw him right at us at the beginning of the show. You know, just to, like not even suspect anybody else. But like I said, I mean, his introduction into it is like real timid. Like he seemed like a real standoffish guy. Like he doesn't like conflict. He tends to avoid certain things. Like when you see him interact with people. But like he, you know, as he explains, like he no longer feels the same way for the faith as he did. That's the introduction that we get from this episode after the events of what happened. And like I said, he's still really shaking, so he's really kind of mixing his words up with Pyre and the scene, making this kind of almost seem like a confession, but not really. In that first episode. But like I said, he just comes off real skittish, and like I said, when you first meet him,
absolutely broken.
Yeah,
but this completely broken. He lost his family, but did he do it? Did he not do it? So I just want to just kind of dive into this because I feel like this is going to kind of be our reoccurring theme. At this point, do you think he did it?
No.
Okay.
I don't.
Okay.
It's somebody we haven't seen yet, obviously, but I mean, like, I don't.
At this point of his introduction, did you think? Because I'm gonna ask this question like over and over.
No, it's too obvious.
Yeah, we watch enough stuff to know that it would not be this person. So, what was the telling part about how I love how this episode was built was that then we get the backdrop of their family, the Laffertys, who I'm just going to keep it 100. It's a whole lot of them. This was giving me pseudo Manson family. So many different personalities. Some very spoken, some very reserved, some very attached. Some the kids really threw me off. Like it was giving me Manson family, and I was like, "Oh, this is a cult," and that may not be far fetched, but I thought about it at this point. I said, "This feels like a cult," and this is where after Alan is brought in, Alan is giving commentary about how they met. First time they met the family. We're getting all the backstory. And he starts to really get into he starts to get sort of like a momentum in terms of profiling each of his siblings.
Like they all had a reason to not like her, basically. Like,
yeah. And this is why like going back doing a review now, I'm still like thinking different things because like at one point you're like, oh, he's just trying to get himself out of jail.
Right.
And then I think that opinion changes to the point you think that no, he's actually putting this together as it goes too. Like he's starting to realize like everything he once thought isn't. And it's kind of like a very, I don't know. I think it's like that realization that we hope we never have to face. But I think that's what a lot of people deal with on the regular, of realizing that something isn't what they thought it was. And the more and more you recount things, you start to say like, yeah, maybe. And this is where he starts to open up not only the investigation for Jeb, but for the viewers. Because now he starts to make claims into his different brothers, his family dynamic, the women's role, their father. And then obviously her, who comes in not only as an outsider, not only as a newbie, but she's completely unconventional. Brenda is not like a woman that the Laffertys would respect.
Right, because they can't control her, basically. She's free. It's like a free spirit, basically. And you see a couple of the scenes where she's interacting. He's trying to either like pull her away from certain things, or prevent her from saying certain things, or like he's just like walking, like that scene where he just walked away from her and just left her there, just kind of with all them minions, like a bunch of kids in there. But you definitely see like a lot of him trying to like intercept a lot of conversation, and like he'll call her name, like Brenda, like chill out, like don't say nothing, because these people are deep into this religion. Like they take this word very, very serious, and anything you say comes off as disrespectful. And mom and dad are like, I don't know, I don't like her. She heard some things. Oh, you went to college? Nah, you know what they be doing. Like, yeah, get up out of here, son. So they already came into this not liking her. And then Alan is saying, like, his brothers had their eye on her. You know what I mean? They be doing their thing. They had their eye on her. That he already felt like he needed to protect her. He felt a little insecure, to a certain extent. Like, and he, detective was like, oh, how'd you feel about that? He was like, obviously he didn't like it, but he doesn't fend up for himself against his brothers. You know what I mean? So
right. And I maybe I'm jumping the gun a little bit here, but I mean, like in this immediate moment, you start to think, like, at least me, I was like, oh well, he's just trying to defend himself to get out of this situation.
Right, and that's what he said. Like most people would do what you're doing right now, and blame everybody else but their family or themselves.
Right.
So he's just like, nah, it was two dudes with beards. What's up? Like they was LSD. Like,
but then I think it starts to transform into like, but actually, I knew I had to introduce her to my family, but I never wanted to. He always made it clear that he did not feel safe with his family himself, and knew that he didn't feel safe with her being around that. But he liked her because she was the unconventional. Let's just keep it 100. Here's how we look at this. This is like the real commentary here of tonight's show. I haven't counted, but we're saying there's 5 men, 5 women. All of them has wives, except for one. So there's 6 and 5 because I think one of and we'll go to names in a second. But I think one may be autistic because something, especially in episode 2, something's up. But there's options there, and obviously because women are to be in the kitchen type of roles, and guys do whatever they want. I actually don't think that there's actually a big concern about the whole big like being attracted to one of your brother's wives or the flirtiness, because it was so loose that it just seems to be the way. So my thing is that if these guys are looking at the wives and they're just kind of like yay, nay, which it was really no other flirting going on, I think they kind of looked at her like the new meat. And whether they were like, hey, we've never had seen or been around a woman that's like this. We always had these like minion women, you know.
I don't know, because you see like in those scenes where like they're working and she comes out and start picking up rocks, they looking at him like, yo, get your girl. Like,
right. But I mean, like they're still like dabbling with the idea like this is different. And I think not only did he know where she's at in terms of wanting to make change and to do something of that sort, I also think too that he also thinks like, oh, well, my brother's going to eat this up because this is not unlike anything they've ever had. But this is a challenge possibly for them. You know, what would they think if this comes in there? I think he had a lot of reasons to reserve the fact beyond their dad, who was obviously the dictator of the entire family, the tyrant, what I don't know, some type of empire that he's running, the leader of the cult. Beyond getting to the big final boss with him, I think he understood that like it was still going to be a challenge because not only the resistance of their father, but like how their brothers may take to her. You know what I mean? And he never knows because all of them are different, and we're going to talk about that. And that's actually getting to that because that's a good scene you brought up. So they did have a scene where they were trying to level the land. They said get all the stones up out of it. They said you can't pee into this entire field. Is clean, and the dad is just sitting up on the top watching the boys do what they gotta do. And Brenda, she just wasn't all for all that gender rolling. She was just like, listen, I got hands. This is kind of boring up here. I don't even know if she even thought it was fun. Maybe she thought it was fun. Maybe it was a challenge, but she says, listen, if I can help, I'm going down there. And we saw all the women throw the shade, but also maybe a little like, whoa, you know what I mean? And Pops ain't immediately say anything. No. And we have to remember Brenda has been murdered. So at this point now, you start to look across the board to start reading the room. Pops didn't like it. The women were very nervous, reserved. Were they envious? Who knows? Did one of them say like, you got all these opportunities and they never let us do anything, and you just come around think you could just change? You know, the battle of the faith is the obviously big backdrop that at some point, because she challenges it.
Right.
This is the constant recurring theme for me, that each and every moment you have to start saying, it's like Clue. You start saying, not that person, you know what I mean? Or guess who is what I'm thinking. Oh, but still Clue. But either way, but that's that. But then this is where we start to really get introduced about the dynamics between the family and the different personalities with it.
Right.
Dad is leaving. He's going on his second missionary. Mom's
2
first.
Years.
How long?
2 years.
2 years. And that means somebody had to step up in the house, right?
Mm-hmm.
So where do we huh?
It was Dan who got appointed as head of the house.
Yep, Dan got promoted. Robin is second in line. And let's be clear, folks. And watching this scene, he makes it very clear that Dan, I'm proud of you. You're going to do this. Robin, have Dan back. And he starts to go down, giving everybody else a little bit of compliments. And then this is when the ultimate shade starts to come about. He goes to Alan and says, you have your hands full.
You got a little bit of work on, son. Like,
talking about Brenda. So he's just like, you don't have an involvement about how the family is going to be run. Let me ask you a question. Do you think Alan was happy or upset about this?
I can't say for sure in that scene. Like, he was definitely a little disappointed because maybe you still want your dad's approval when it comes to certain things like that, based on this family setting, but maybe a little bit relieved too because he doesn't want to get too involved in this. You know what I mean? And at this point, him and Brenda are not married, so there's no string attachment. There's nothing that she has to do any of this. This is just the preview of what my family is like, and this is a regular day. We just in the woods picking up rocks. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, he was definitely disappointed about the line on which he was picked. Like you said, Dad didn't have nothing for him. I'm gone for 2 years. It's up for Dan and Robin. That's it.
Yeah.
Listen to them.
Yeah. And if that wasn't bad enough, then he looks at Ron and just said nothing. He gave Ron the ultimate shade. Ron is played by Sam Worthington. I got to go back because I started to think, like, what else has Ron been? I forgot about Clash of the Titans. And
oh, yeah, both of those.
Yeah. So, and it's been a while. I've always liked his he has this look to him, which he really, he has this look to him that I think he can tell a story in facial expressions and mannerisms that I really appreciate. And you see that in I might keep saying Transformers and God, you got me forgetting Terminator, excuse me. Terminator and Avatar. And I also forgot too, he also was alongside of Andrew Garfield in Hacksaw Ridge. So, yeah, so a little bit of history there. But yeah, at this point now, we start to understand that there's some tension in this family. Things ain't just everybody fall in line. Folks have different opinions, different positions, and whatever it may be. But this hurt Ron because with this sort of lack of acceptance, he didn't pray. His eyes was open. His wife had his back. But Mom Deuce came and said, one day you're going to be the one to run the family. I mean, it's a lot for Ron, and we're going to learn more about Ron. And I got to be honest. This is unpopular opinion right now, but Ron may be my favorite character because I feel like he is the biggest wild card in everything.
I don't know. To me, like so far, he really hasn't done anything. I feel like majority of it has been like Dan and Robin is like the focal points.
Yeah,
like it really. I feel like he has. I mean, I don't feel like he's had as much screen time as they did throughout these 2 episodes.
But with him sitting on the city council and his ideology in terms of expansion and building and that type of influence, and like the another recurrent theme is about building, and like you'll see upon watching it how significant that is, and with him being like a main catalyst of that. I'll just keep it what it is. Building and expansion is one of the most, I would say, like the most important business side to religion,
right?
It's the and even with them clearing the rocks, that was in terms of leveling the ground to build and expand, and that's been the historical. That's been a historical fight,
right? So talking about building and expanding, we see in episode 1, like the guy that didn't catch his name comes to the house and he was like, "Yo, look, we told you get your shit out. we need to take this land." And we gonna get it done. He was like, "Oh, how much time he got?" Well, he got the day, and till the sun go down, and that's it. Like, and I guess they were like kind of like taking over because they were trying to expand the land that was close to where they were. And then he just sits at the table and eats with them. So like, I just thought that was awkward because they kind of come off as like a mafia. You know what I mean? In that scene, like, we're gonna sit down and break bread with you, but we're gonna take your spot. Like, we're gonna take your land. So I thought that was interesting, just like I said, just to kind of see kind of the power of the Laffertys in this town.
Yeah, that's for sure. And it just makes sense, you know. Last names in certain cities and places, they're there for a reason. And you wonder, like, why is every store called this? You know what I mean? And this is just it. The Laffertys are celebrity, but they also are like, they're like the people of this land. And I also think that, like, as we get near to wrapping up episode 1, I think as we learn more about the historical, because like they make it very clear that their father's um teachings and being and everything that he does is aligned with the historical things that have happened. You see, like, you, because we don't see much of what the father does, but we hear that the father has done everything that all these other folks that have come to this land beforehand have done. So it seems like a very like parallel trajectory and whatnot. I think we get to a point where we hit a crossroads where we find out that the folks that they're talking about are actually distant relatives of theirs of some sort. So this is just like the passing of all these things down the line. I think at some point they're going to try to make us feel a bit sympathetic for their dad. I think they are.
Dad's
but
weird.
as of right now, no. I don't know, either sympathetic or just try to gain some type of appreciation as to like, oh, he asked this way because that's all he ever known, and this is where the families come from, and all this other sorts of stuff. You know,
He just does the same father that was just in Peacemaker. The guy was like the guy that's crazy guy that was with the I can't catch his name, but yeah, like
so but yeah, with all this going down, I mean, now they're trying to investigate because like at this point now, from everything Alan's been telling while being interrogated, the search is on for the brothers. And they want to get more information, and this is where they bring in Robin. Robin's brought in, and you know that's where things start to change. I think beyond that too, I just think that we just understand more about Jeb and just the at work at home scenario what he's going through. I mean, he comes home, he completely decompresses. His wife comes behind him and understands. And I think that he's just battling a lot. And I think for everything that's happening, because you have these folks that are basically going around with the mindset of religion and faith, but they're the prime suspects. Your religion and faith don't make you do that because their religion and faith should be aligned with Jeb's with Jeb's views. And he's like, well, I would never have done nothing like this. So what's happening here? You know what I mean? He's trying to figure that out. And I think the other little weird tidbit that we got from this episode was that there seems to also be this idea that there's a outside force of evil that's kind of plaguing the land. Things of the past are now starting to haunt the dead. And I mean, that's a hardcore religious, like, this is why things are happening. Like the sins of history are now, you know, coming to effect now. And I think that, you know, we'll see how that goes by because they made it very clear, like that's the thing. So anything else episode 1?
I'm trying to think. Like you said, we covered pretty much like them at the table and everything like that. And going through all majority of like the Laffertys, what was it? Ron, Dan, Alan, Brenda, Samuel, and talked about Bill, all the characters that were in that particular first episode. But like I said, they definitely start pointing the finger at the brothers, the mom, and everybody, just kind of throw you off track of who they want you to think it is, which is Alan. And that's, like I said, that's pretty much episode 1. Them kind of, you know, putting the blame, putting it somewhere else, and giving you like some painted background as to why these potential people could have done what happened to Brenda. So they were jealous. So, but no, that's
something jealous or conniving, whatever it may be.
What was weird, they kept saying how pretty she was. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you just was like really weird the way they were saying it. Like, oh man, you're just extremely pretty. Like, oh my god. Like, was like, no, touch her hand or something like that. I'm like, a little too friendly. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, definitely lines are like, it's like, again, like I was saying, like, I don't think anybody has a problem with crossing lines, and then the wives can't say anything because that's not their position to do so.
That's my husband.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, this is the 80s.
Yes, that's right. Question, because I don't know what I wrote this for. I got something about father-in-law said he beats on her. Who 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 was being abused?
I didn't catch that one. Who was getting beat on?
I have
Like,
no I have
if
no clue
anybody,
why.
it was probably the timid redhead one. I wouldn't be surprised. Whose wife was that? That was probably that was Dan's wife, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, if somebody was getting beat on, it was definitely Dan's wife.
yeah.
Like,
And I think, I mean, either because I could not, I don't know why I just wrote it in the way I did, but I mean, like, there's also this tells you like these type of things, rape culture, all these sorts of different things that women are very marginalized. You can only do this, and anything outside of that is consequential. And yeah, we see men, and again, it's the 80s. That's just it.
right.
It's the 80s. So,
That the excuse.
would you say?
That the excuse now. It was the 80s. Like, it was like,
Yeah, definitely don't make it right, but yeah, it was a goddamn 80s. So that was episode 1, When God Was Love. So what we got now, episode 2, Rightful Place. Again, these episodes are dropping the same night, so that's why we're getting into episode 2 right here. So episode 2 starts off with
choose the right.
Choose the Right. I have never heard of this, and I said I'm about to Google it. And the first thing that came up when I Googled it was Gladdy Knight wearing one. And this is obviously just a ring that
I thought it was like a purity ring at first. That's why I thought that was like.
Yeah, I didn't know what it was, but I looked it up, and obviously it's just I guess the easiest way to kind of equate this to anything is anybody that's a Christian, you know, when folks were wearing the WWJD, what would Jesus do? Yeah. Like it's the same. It's just the ring. Like it's a reminder in terms of making right decisions and stuff like that. So I've never seen it. So for me, this tidbit, there's two things to make of it. The daughter questioning. We see how he enforces it to his daughter, but I also think it's just like another glimpse into society, into this religion. Right. Because I feel like there's going to be somebody that's wearing one minute and not wearing one a minute. And that's why I think it was introduced that way.
He explains, like, you know what I mean? Like this, like, you know, when, you know, she gets baptized or whatever, like it washes away all your previous sins as a baby, as a child. And, you know, everything prior to that, you know what I mean? Like, so anything going forward is, you know, you'll be absolved under God's law, yada, yada, yada. So try to explain, like, you know, I guess this rebirth that they go through after that.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, now we're Robin in custody here. Things get interesting. They got two folks now. First of all, Andrew completely transforms into this role. I just want to just mention, like, we've seen moments of greatness, I believe, in the first episode, but I think in the second episode we truly see him embracing this character. And Detective Pyre is on the job, more motivated than ever, and now having two suspects where we kind of see him now working with Alan to get information on Robin, and then Robin is completely a different type of shooter inside of this room. He isn't deflecting. He's very much about this is how things are. And to be clear, it's not saying that he admitted, but he's just saying, like, this, he's a guy that's strong in his faith. And whether you agree with the faith or not, he's making it very clear that, like, this is how I operate. This is why we do things. We see that he's attached to some other stuff in a moment, but, like, it's a complete different dynamic here. We don't see two brothers against each other. We see one brother completely broken and the other brother that's completely strong in his faith, and he doesn't care who comes a casualty of that. At least that's my opinion. So what's your thoughts about Robin being brought in? And how does this now change the direction?
I'm not even gonna lie to you. I thought that was Dan. He had the beard, so it was definitely Robin, right? Robin was the construction one who had
no. What Robin is the one that's in there,
right? Because he kept
Dan wears the hat,
right? He kept questioning about Robin. Like, why you keep bringing him up? Why you keep asking about Robin? Is he what's good? So. I don't know. I thought that was weird because, like, when they catch Robin, like he's trying to run. He's trying to get up. He's trying to get low on him. You know, he goes out the back window. Wife try to help him out. That's a loyal wife, man. Like, oh, he's not here. Jumping out the window. So I don't know. I mean, we you know, of course, he's like, you know, the reason, you know, why I ran is basically like, you know, you guys follow this law, not God's law. So, anything can happen. I can't trust that you guys are going to do what's right. You know what I mean? So that was his reason why he ran.
Yeah.
But then he comes in, he brings up a whole new series of questions. Is what was your issue? Because I don't even think he mentions anything about Brenda at first, right? It's just more so like what was going on, why is you running? Like, they kind of just talk about the religious aspect of the whole thing about his issue with like law enforcement and everything like that.
Yeah. Oh, the anti-tax group.
Right.
Yeah. The Patriots of Freedom. Oh, tell me that don't sound like a coach.
So like you already see he has a problem with like authority. You know what I mean? And uses his religion to be like, oh, we can just kind of do whatever we want. We don't have to listen to you. You know what I mean? Because those not the laws that we abide by. So right. I thought that was pretty cool. He's kind of like the radical of the family. You know what I mean? Like he's kind of tired of it. So
right. And I think
sure that's not Danny.
This is Robin.
Okay.
Don't confuse me. Again, there's a bunch of names going on here, but this is Robin.
No, because Ron is Sam Worthington. Dan was Wyatt. Okay. I just want to make sure I got the right. Okay.
Right. And so Robin, like you said, Robin is about what he feels making change for the unjust ways of the law of man.
Right.
And these has to do with taxes and all sorts of different things where they're going to be part of this group, which in that group, they're filing lawsuits in order to make change.
Right.
Alan's also giving his same sort of backdrop as well by saying like, listen, like, he be rolling around with these bearded men. They're not hippies, they're Mormon. And there's 3 of them, but also my brother was in there as well too. So, that's what's happening with that. So it's kind of just getting a little bit of different perspectives about the scenario, but it's not like we're telling 2 different stories because Robert's straight up like, well, we did that. This is what we do. You know what I mean? He's fully embracing who he is, which is why I say he's strong in his faith, because he feels by faith there is no consequences.
Right.
He's untouched, and and again, because of his family, I think he also feels that like they're untouchable.
Right. It was definitely Robin. The beard just threw me off.
Yeah. I don't worry, I got you. So anyway, with everything happening now, with their dad and their mom, because now we're getting more, backstory again about Brenda interaction. Right. This is where we bring up Jacob. Jacob is where I feel is the one who has some type of mental disorder, because we catches him pretty much snap the neck of a squirrel and just kind of just startled there.
That was weird.
So why is this in there? Because I also think that we're going to get 2 things here. Who went to help him and comfort him when this happened? She did. And we also see that he potentially could be unhinged. But is she a safe zone for her? Or does she get caught in a circumstance of thinking it's safe and it's not? And we've seen that trope in horror films all the time of folks thinking like, oh, this is my buddy. And then my buddy comes out and does what he does and whatnot. And I think that's just kind of why that scene had to be like that, because you say, well, Jacob may be mentally ill, but he wouldn't hurt her because they're cool. Or would he? And she thought so. And you never know what type of influence, motivation could be attached to that and so on. So that's why it's always the whole idea of like, now who do you think did it? Who do you think is behind this now? So
honestly, I didn't even think two cents into that. Like the whole him just killing animals. That what was that movie with like
all of them. If you any serial killers, this is the start of it.
Yeah. But I was thinking more like had like the mental whatever. It's on the spectrum. But I didn't even think about put 2 and 2 together with that one. Like, him starting off killing squirrels and stuff like that, and her just kind of covering up. And keep in mind, they mentioned that this is the first time that mom and dad has been gone since he's been alive. Like, for a long period of time like that. You know what I mean? So that could be something that set him off, and like I said, this is a 2-year thing, so they're gone for a minute. Dealing with not, they're used to like certain things happening, in that's the word I'm looking for. Just
patterns.
Right. They just used to certain things happening, and maybe that just threw him off completely. But again, I mean, I didn't even think about him as even a potential suspect at all. Like,
that's the guy had that detective happen at all times, sir. And I think too, like, yeah, you're right, because you talk about the whole energy of the place changed, because like the moment that they're gone, like Dan, first of all, you have to understand that they did this, and Alan made it clear they did this to spite Ron. So that's one thing. And then Dan comes in and he got this whole new energy, like it's party time. But then Dan actually didn't realize and did not initially realize the amount of responsibility of him being the head of the household that would basically dawn upon him and his wife.
Right.
And it's bad because it's a lot more. There's a lot more of a burden he ever thought he could have. Ron's not willing to help. We will talk, and I keep bringing it up because you know why? Because Brenda has a part into this, and Robin never liked Brenda being around, who was also trying to help, because it was uncharacteristic for women to want to be in a scenario or situation of that sort, to step outside their box of normal duties. Right, so there's like a lot of different moving parts happening now that their dad is gone, which is the craziest thing, because their dad being gone, and we don't actually know where time is at with this. But I was like, it had to be the dad. But then again, that doesn't mean the dad isn't unreachable.
Right.
And to hear what changes she may make and whatever, like, the theories has got to be crazy, folks.
Yeah, Brenda bringing in self-esteem for these women, you know what I mean, and potential of what they could be, you know what I mean, like, like she says, like, like the girls were staring at, like the kids were staring at, like she was an alien because she's an outsider, and she's been places, she's done things. These kids don't know nothing outside of these walls. You know what I mean? So yeah. Brenda's bringing in a problem, and they definitely don't want that for their family.
Yeah, because when we see Brenda and Alan have that meeting with Ron and his wife, Alan talked about how he liked Brenda because she saw things different. I think opposites attract, and I think that is, at times can really promote more healthier relationships, because you're not just, especially in his way of the world, where you just basically got somebody that's just doing whatever you say. So I think it challenged him and made him better. And whether that's problematic for the faith or not, he still embraced it. I think a lot of people like different and whatnot. But Ron, he comes into Ron and was like, listen, things are pretty bad for your brother, man. You might need to go help Dan. And we know Dan is the head of the house. But Ron is not happy because he didn't get that nod. We've seen it now going into episode 2. So trying to suggest to him that you should help him, Ron was like, nah. Nah.
I don't want none of that.
So it's just interesting because, like, she's thinking about expansion. He's clearly thinking about expansion. So, like, their mindset and growth aligns. He just ain't trying to have his family doing anything about it. So this is another interesting thing. Because does she become a problem for Ron, or do they actually see eye to eye, even though they actually kind of do see eye to eye with things? I mean, I think we can say Ron is kind of 85% strong in his faith, but also think that because of what he does professionally, I think that gives him a little bit of different leverage and stuff. And also, I think his whole and maybe he's strong in his faith, but he just doesn't agree with his family. And
I don't know, men gonna be men regardless of faith or not. I mean, you're gonna do what you're gonna do. You see an opportunity, you're gonna take it. So, I mean, that's basically what I got out of that. I mean, that whole cheese cracker scene was weird. Like, I'm like, I was just like, I'm not going to eat it. I'm like, she's not eating it either. I'm like, okay, so we just have a whole scene where, like, they just got something in common. Is that what the purpose of that was? Like, they just wanted to, like, they just don't like cheese. I don't know. I'm reaching into that. Like,
and like I said, like, their minds align. Like, we must build no matter what. And
right, because he was trying to build a pool or something. Like, he's trying to build property value. Like,
building is building, you know what I mean? Right. But he's saying that you can help your brother and build by helping your brother. And he's just like, no. And I think this is just sibling conflict, and the dad just not picking Ron and pick Dan. I think it just bothers him. And I think when it comes down to something going through the council that significantly could help the family, he's gonna completely cripple them.
Right.
That's where despite coming back, especially by his growth. And I also think that Brenda's is somewhere going to be in the crossfire there. That's another thing I think kind of coming is that where does she play? Because like she's like pro family, but she's also like pro expansion, which does actually make her in the middle right here, because one of them's like pro family, but we can't expand because we need help. And the other one's like, I can't expand, but I'm not helping my family. So it's, man, no one wins when the family feuds, man. No one wins, and that may be the ultimate catalyst as to why Brenda took the L. So,
not the baby though. God damn,
not the baby. So Bill, he's up in the mountains. He's looking for the brothers, and he follows his ranger. And the ranger is very dismissive. I mean, I think there was the prejudice because of law enforcement.
Right.
I don't think there was prejudice because you're not one of us.
Yeah, I thought it was a race thing. I mean, but
I've been there. Yep. Yeah. Yep, definitely religion, race, and conflict of the alphabets in terms of what agency they work for and whatnot. But yeah, he gets up there, and I think Bill, I like this because Bill seems like a very dedicated man, but he makes it very clear to us that he's also nervous in this. He said, if you don't hear from me, send him up.
30 minutes.
30 minutes, send them up. And
I don't like my job that much. If I'm the dude was like, yeah, you go up there if you want to. I'm good. 30 years in the job because I'm careful. You good on that?
Yeah. And this is just the catalyst of religion versus good government, man. So he's up there looking for the Laffertys wherever they can because everybody's all over the place. And it's just going to create issues. But I mean, like, Robin made it clear that, like, they're not going to go for this. Folks don't like the law because he feels like the law are unjust, and they threaten the family, the religion, the freedom, and they have to then thus surrender their values. And if you go looking for trouble, you're going to find it. Right. If that's not the most threatening thing that you didn't actually say you were going to do something, I don't know what to say, but that's, I mean, we'll get to it, but that's where they started to kind of make this in terms of saying, like, is this like some type of confession of some sort? Because you're saying some things here, and I'm sitting here like, yeah, you're saying something. I don't know what it is, but you're saying something. But we'll talk about Bill as we get towards the end of the episode. But it was important to know that Bill, now we see Bill in sort of a dire situation, and we'll make our predictions and whatnot. Meanwhile, back at the Lafferty's, what did they call the mansion's place? The compound. The compound. Thank you. Back at the Lafferty's compound, we see folks coming in there saying, "Listen, these assets, we coming to get these babies. Y'all ain't out here paying bills." I know this is your favorite part of the episode. This your favorite part of the episode.
Is that like a real thing? They just come in your house, like just be like, "Hey, what's up? Well, I'm taking this."
They served the warrant.
Yeah,
the cops came up there, so like they served the warrant.
I said, "I see you had the notices we had up piled neatly right there. So you seen it, so you know why I'm here. What's up?" Like, I need you to step out, get out while I take your assets real quick. You ain't taking nothing. So I was like, I mean, I would have shot that dude on sight, but he's not violent people. So
he definitely can't. He's not trespassing. He did. The cops just authorized him to be in there. So like he's not trespassing. But I'm surprised that it didn't get to that. But he definitely swung on him with a pipe. But listen, Dan here, played by Wyatt. This was the scene of the episode here. He really intense, and
he plays crazy well.
Yeah, plays crazy well. Matilda said, "I ain't paying these damn bills because that ain't what the Holy Spirit said." So
the Holy Spirit and Dan are one and the same, apparently.
I listen, I need Matilda in my life right now. Come through, get these student loans up out of here. Like, call them right now and say, we ain't paying these babies.
I came to him with my prediction and we was married like next week. We're like, what? What are you talking about?
Oh my God.
God speaks through me. I'm like, he was just like, yeah, you're right. I did tell you that. I did tell you not to pay no bills. Like, if God says it, then it's true. We don't got to pay him. I'm like, okay. You sit outside. Yeah. Sitting right outside on the grass, talking about God, get the Holy Spirit. Like, yeah, all right. My man said his partner outside waiting. Come, he about to pull up. Go ahead and do something. We taking this.
Pepper spray to the actual pepper spray gun. That's the first thing that caught me. I was like, wait, is that a real gun?
I thought it was a taser, like
something. Didn't expect that.
His eyes was definitely burning. Like, I'm like, all right. Like, this dude is enraged. And then what was that? That was Ron, right? That was with him. No, that was Robin. That was in the house. They came downstairs. They ran back up to chase the guy. Right, it had to be because Robin was telling the story. So,
yeah. No. You talking about when this was all happening?
When the tax man, yeah.
It was Dan.
Okay.
Dan was out. Dan was told to leave. You know, Dan. So Dan's always going to be home because he's running the house. So Dan, I assume, was told to leave the house because of it, and he storms in, hears the conflict, and runs in. I just think they're aware, and also the other folks was outside too, but that was Dan that came in because like Brenda was here too, right?
No, Brenda was not there.
Okay, well, yeah, but either way, yeah, it was Dan because you know, and by dressing, it was I feel like it was Dan. So, but anyway, so where we at now with this now? So
right after the tax evasion, it seemed like. So they talk about Matilda not paying them bills.
Yeah.
We get into a little bit of Brenda's backstory, of her wanting a better position at work, at the studio.
Yeah. So Alan is also at this point, explaining why his initial reservation of Brenda and marrying.
Mm-hmm.
But he always knew he was completely sold on her, but he knew it wasn't the right time because he also knew that there would be other obstacles to overcome. But yeah,
my family.
Brenda was pro breaking down barriers. She was out here doing her thing back in the 80s, and you know, it just wasn't the way of the world because women were marginalized to only do specific things. And I think that this was the case. This was our prime example of like how not only is she willing to make change, but she's also very confident in standing on her 2 feet.
Mm-hmm.
We see her get into a situation where she tells the manager that do you lock your boys in here? Do you lock your men in here, or do you only lock the women? How come you only let boys do the news? And why she wanted to audition and make a claim for being a backup when somebody's not available. He obviously was thinking something very more sadistic.
He was offering her a position. It just wasn't. He was offering her a position, just not one she was thinking about.
Yeah, that's for sure. So, and she held her own, and I think that was the important thing. She held her own, and she made sure that like her presence was felt.
Plus, her mask was right there. Like, you know what I mean? If anything was to happen, he was.
It's coincidental. It wasn't like it's just coincidental time. It was just television time. I think the important thing to look at this is that she's not afraid to stand up for herself.
No,
even in the most dire situation, she would stand up for herself. And I think that folks are going to find that problematic because it's just that she just does things what is deemed to be unconventional for these times, but it's just her just standing up for herself. And hey, what do you know? She landed it because we see her at some point on the news, and I think that the other folks looking at her and it's like, wow, you know, she's accomplished, but like she built these opportunities. She stood up for herself, and that's good that she's making change. But like, folks don't like that. They don't like change, and this puts her as a threat because now you're either in religion or you're in with the law. It's one or the other. And if you're in the middle, then you probably end up dead. And that's to be determined. Where was Brenda's alignment upon everything happening here? And I think that she believes in the faith to an extent, but I think she's feminist.
I don't know. The way they make it seem, the way that Alan makes it seem is that her family was like swearing her over. Like, you know, she was falling into this religion, into his side of the religious things a little harder than, you know, than we initially see from her. And that was one of the reasons why he was trying to back out of it. He just didn't want her to go down that path where women are marginalized and they don't, because obviously she ain't gonna be able to keep that job and come into this faith with his family, because that ain't gonna fly. You know what I mean? So he was like, yeah, you know, he see like he wanted to back out of this. He wanted to marry her and kind of just get away from the family and let her be her own person. Like, so, and he knew by, you know, bringing her into this, it wasn't gonna fly. Yeah. Not with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. He had the ultimate reservations because of, like you said, the things you said. But on the other one, we get to see Alan interacting with her family, almost burning down the Christmas tree with fireworks. What holiday was it? It can't be both. Fireworks on Christmas, but hey,
like 9 Christmas trees out there. I'm like, they got money.
Yeah, not a good first impression. But I mean, like, I think that, and I think we see more of a traditional household with Brenda, because the family talking behind his back the moment he steps outside, and you know, she stood up for him, which is the other thing as well too. But I think the dad is willing to allow such change and to
the dad knows what's up. Like, yo, he knows what's up with that religion. He was like, you know, the way he was talking, like, you know, kind of gender roles. He was like, I don't know, you hear this? Like, you know, you go, baby. He was like, you know, when he says like, look, you know, the women outnumber me in this family. Like, you know, I'm not about to, you know, tell her she can't do this, that, or third. You know what I mean? He wants her to be successful. He wants her not to be under control of a man and live her life. And he makes that very, very clear. So
yeah, I still think he is willing to see what Alan may, how his views may change. I think that him coming out when a tree was burning, I think that was not a very aggressive manner of like, what are you doing? But more like you made a mistake. And I think that he may see Alan to be a work in progress. And I think that acceptance with her father is clearly going to affect his acceptance with his own father. Right. That's why I think that's important that we saw that, because we know it's coming, and it's going to be a divide between brothers in terms of who's online with their father and who isn't. And you know, you start to see it being split at this point right now, but you know, we're going to see how that goes beyond that. And I think also too, that's going to be more of a situation where you know, the father may order to make sure that his family is concrete, that they may want to eliminate distractions.
Right.
You know, for all the folks that watch Power, when Walter said Vic girl has to get up out of here, this isn't the way of the Irish. Well, where's this girl? So, and it's to be determined if he actually made the hit or not. But I mean, like, these type of things happen. Like, we got to keep the family in order. Right. And when folks come in and start to deviate from that, that's problematic. And that's where, you know, we have to kind of see how that gets evaluated going forward. So anyway, you know, I just think that Alan doesn't like his family. I think that's just what it is. I think from all the teachings, the beatings, you remember, like you said, the dog.
Oh yeah, that was an
example. Yeah. and like their father did that because that's what they historically did. You want to teach folks, you take it out on their animals, which is the wildest thing. And I think that, you know, he brought up the time about when that happened to them, and it did not give a good reaction from Alan in that. And that's why
that was another instance of, like, you know, taking over property, like, you know, these people felt like they weren't rightfully there, and that wasn't their property. They wasn't following state law, man's law, and they made an example out of it, and they try to kind of just try to brush it to the side and keep it moving, but clearly they wasn't letting up. So
yeah.
that was crazy.
Here's another interesting thing. So Jeb now is starting to ask Alan more about Robin because he's trying to figure out who he's looking for, what type of beliefs does he have, what type of interest does he have.
Right.
But it's interesting because Alan sort of still backs Robin. He's sort of I feel like he still is trying to give some type of alibi for him of some sort of the type of man he is and whatnot. And the folks you're looking for are unnamed folks that are to be determined. So that's going to be interesting, but that's not the problem I want to talk about here. The problem I want to talk about is every single time that Alan gets a chance, he starts to ask Jeb about his faith. And he is deflecting that left and right. You're not having that, which tells us one thing. He ain't trying to talk about it because he's avoiding it because it is a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think, episode 3 is when we're really going to find out, what's the deal with my man Faith? What has he been through that we don't know about? We could talk about the grieving of his dad. We could talk about anything from another case that he's working. Something, we're going to find that out. And I think that, like I say, he's torn between work, family, and religion. The guy's being torn in all different directions. It's going to be definitely a journey for him going forward.
I can't imagine doing that type of work with that particular faith. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of restrictions to what you can and can't do. And it seems like right now he's about to miss his daughter's baptism, a bunch of other stuff that's going on because of the hours he has to work and stuff like that. So I can imagine there's been a lot of times where he's been torn between this is not the first time he's been put in question. So
yeah, absolutely. So this going to the because I don't want to focus on it too much, but because this was definitely the most grittiest part of the 2 episodes thus far, is going back into history about basically the Ohio law versus law, the religion, the law of religion,
right?
And we've seen the incident earlier with the dogs and how that kind of got resolved, and there seemed to be some type of peace treaty, and that didn't go anywhere because they were not going to just let up, because they wanted to find more on it and they wanted to cut the religion off at its head. Right. So this is where he says, listen, we done caught you not only in a violation of your religion but in ours, therefore you're gonna have to pay.
Cheating on your wife
with an unmarried woman, and you're gonna either lose your tongue or you're gonna lose your junk. And the doctor was like, listen, bro, get up out of here, all right? Because I ain't about to do this. The doctor was like, all right, y'all handle this. I'm up out of here. You know what's funny though? You know what's funny about that?
What?
Because doctors also play a significant part in this battle. Because doctors don't act on either side. They don't act in the law. They don't act in religion. They actually just act in their practice. That's what they believe in science.
It's kind of like when they used to have those duels back in the day. They would have a doctor on site and somebody got shot, pronounce somebody dead or whatever. They were just like, look, man, I don't condone this, but I'm gonna do my job.
It's just like but I mean, in a battle of law versus religion, the understanding that the doctor is not on either of these sides. That's why he was able to leave, and it's not a problem. He's like, I'm out of here. I'm not dealing with this. This is not what I signed up for. He pulled out his little scalpel and he's like, and I'm out. And that's why they say get the tar and the feather. But ultimately, he just left. Right? They let him leave
because he saw him bounce out with his family.
Yeah, got on the chariot and was gone. At least we think, because he made it very clear that they're coming back. So, and I think that's just again starting to understand. And they're in Ohio here, so they're not in Utah.
Yeah, a ton of guns in that joint too. They were clearly prepared for a battle. They was like, we get them next. We get them next time.
I think it's going to tell you about the migration of the religion. Something is to make of this, and that's what I'm saying. We're going to get this backstory history lesson, but I think it's going to become current at some point. And I think maybe once they wherever they left Ohio, where they're going, and we'll see. And it's sort of like history just is repeating itself with these events and whatnot.
Right.
But at this point now, I just think that, you know, this is the big question. Now, Detective Pyre said, "Did you kill Brenda for daring to resist?" And that's Robin that, and that was a question that wasn't answered. This is, like I said, when the score gets intense, things are really good, and a completely shocking cliffhanger because we don't know what happened with Bill. So as we wrap up with this review tonight of both episodes, sir, is Bill alive? We've seen the gun. He looks through a gun hole, and there's a 12 gauge looking right in the eye.
So I thought that was interesting too, because they played that up like a kind of like a horror movie, like a thriller, and that scene, like you said, with the score. And I was like, man, am I watching The Village right now? Like, this is weird. Like, kids running through the fort. I'm like, yo, first of all, I ain't chasing nobody. I'm out. I'm getting back in my car. This dude, he fell in that hole. I'm like, yeah, that's it. I wrote down, yeah, he done. And scratched his name off the list. Like, he done. And like you said, he already knew what it was. Like, yo, if I don't get a call in 30 minutes, come get me. I'm out here done. So, like you said, like the officer told him, like, don't go up there. So, yeah. Hopefully, I don't think he died. I don't think he's dead. Because you can see, like, at the end of the scene, he kind of like looked back. He looked back. So hopefully they missed him. But I don't think they killed him, because if they killed him, that's a wrap. So,
yeah, it's a limited series, so I wouldn't be surprised. But like, I hope they're not, because I definitely want to know more about him. And if he gets shot and injured, that'll also be something too, because that also makes that person another, not just a suspect, but also will have to just be brought in for that as well too. It makes them a criminal. And where does that kind of play out? And the prejudice against private property, and does the law trump that? And because you remember that was brought up earlier, this is private property. What are you doing on this? Like, we own this, and they're just like, listen, this is the law of well, he calls it, says he's from Connecticut. But he said, nah, we coming up in here. This is what we're doing. So I think sort of that's where this is kind of going to come into play. Seeing him shot and understanding who was right in this scenario, just to create more conflict here for Detective Pyre. You know what I mean? So that's that. And I think that Robin did not kill, but I think Robin absolutely knows who it is. I think Robin is truly running the cult with the anti-tax folks. I think they're the evil ones. I think they realized that Brenda was a threat. Brenda probably knew more than she should have known. Think about how much Alan knew. How much did Brenda know? And where did she take that information? I don't know. Just reaching, because
this is about 2 years after that whole picnic scene, because they've been the kid was, like we said, 15 months. They married about like 2 years at this point.
Yeah, and she's not even pregnant now. So yeah. So that's a good, yeah.
And Brenda.
But anyway, folks, like, I know this is a long one because we did a review and then 2 recaps here. Totally check it out. Episode 3 will be much shorter because we're only going to be reviewing that one episode. But it's definitely worth checking out. If you spent this much time, it must tell you something. So, but jump in the comments, let us know your thoughts. We want to know who you suspicious of. Who do you think did it? And where do you kind of see this show going? But yeah, we're here each and every week. Let us know in the comments your thoughts about it, and we'll see you back next time.
See.